Hello. Hi. Thank you very much for coming. I can't promise you what it's going to be like. You can mark me out to 10 at the end. Um, my name's Tom Sherry. I presume you've read the title of what we're doing, what I'm here to talk about today. Revolutionising production, how a production company is exploiting new technologies to reinvent workflows and enhance the content created. Quite a grand title. I work for a production company called Red Productions in Manchester. I'm the executive producer there alongside Nicola Schindler. We produce drama, a bit of comedy, even a little bit of radio. Last year we produced about 40 hours of broadcast drama. Scott and Bailey, Last Tango in Halifax, Pat and Cabbage, and even did a feature film as well, Blood. Previously we've made shows like Exile, Hit and Miss, Clocking Off, Queer as Folk, and next year looks just as busy, in fact actually more so. We've got a new series, Prey, that I'm producing. I also produce as well as exec produce. Happy Valley, The Driver, Ordinary Lies, Cucumber, to name just the first 6 months worth of returning series. We'll be working for the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky, and possibly even another feature, and international collaboration. The majority of productions that we make are primetime dramas. The average budget is approximately £800,000 per hour. I mention that because it gives you an idea of the scale of what we do. Obviously, there are many production companies out there that face similar situations, and I'm sure some of our solutions and problems aren't unique. If I had to make a prediction about how our workflow might change over the next 5 years, I believe the range and scale of our productions is going to expand. I would expect us to be working with international partners more, and I would also expect the size of the budgets to increase quite significantly on one or two of those projects, much more in line with some of the large-scale American series. That in its own way has new challenges. More money isn't necessarily an easier thing to deal with. At the same time, I'd expect for us as a production company to be looking to diversify into higher volume programming opportunities, still in drama, but higher volume automatically tends to mean lower cost as well per hour. I think that's it's worth saying, because currently we tend to make stuff that is in a very similar vein. It's 9 o'clock, as I said, approximately 800 an hour, and it's terrestrial in the UK. And I think this change will open up many more opportunities for production in the Northwest, particularly on a different scale. But none of it changes what we do as a production company. Primarily, we're there to tell stories, and it doesn't really matter what the scale or the size of the project is. It's just a different set of creative parameters for us to deal with. I'm going to talk primarily about broadcast drama and comedy, because that's what we do. So apologies if that's not what you were expecting. Before I did the research for this, I would have said that at Red we were reluctant, if not slow, adopters of new technology, and I would have said that we don't like change. But having thought about it in some detail for today and looked at what we've done in various departments over the last few years, well, perhaps this isn't quite as true as I'd first thought, and we have made many more developments than I would have expected. But the key is that they have been developments rather than radical changes. And that's how it should be. We should embrace new technology and see ways in which it enhances our ability to create interesting ways of telling stories, but not be forced into new systems because they're new or different, and just because they work for someone else. One of the things I've learnt over the years is that there are very many different layers and approaches to making TV. As you can see outside, there's lots of different types of approach, and that's because there are very many different areas and genres, and ours is just one, and a very niche element of it. We recently had to embrace a very big change at Red Production Company. Some of you in the room will be aware that we had to move out of our home of 15 years, Granada, and move across to Salford's Keys. And along that journey, we discovered some of the reasons why we don't like radical change, but then also discovered some of the good advantages of what change can bring us. And it made us question ourselves and what we do in a way that we've never questioned ourselves in the previous 15 years. During our relocation, everywhere I went, I met people who told us how things should be done. We met ergonomic office interior design consultants who suggested deliberately uncomfortable seatings plans for meetings to speed up and reduce the unnecessary time of meetings, flexible and fluid seating arrangements and breakout areas. I was just a little bit irritated by the presumption that people who had never done our job knew how to do it better. I was told I would like it if I was just to be open-minded and approach it with a positive perspective. What wasn't understood was that our offices weren't just offices, but a way of being close to post-production services. And how we sat and divided our office space was based on experience. All reinventions of workflows should be based on direct experience and not slavishly copying what worked for somebody else. Our solution was to take what had worked well at 360, but was no longer available to us, and find a new partner to replicate that, and find things that we liked and enhance those, and perhaps along the way reinvent one or two of the elements that didn't work as well. We've partnered ourselves with a company called Doc 10 over at Media City. Primarily, this was to be close to our post-production, our edit, our dub, and our grade, whilst being able to choose on a production-by-production basis what service, and particularly key to us, who we would be working with on a technical basis, on a job-by-job basis. The proximity is needed as personal relationships are always more of a deciding factor than technical ones. It's who we sit next to that is the key defining factor of the quality of the work that we produce. Having said that, technology has improved our workflows and our systems. And if I was to go back just 5 years, we were still working on film. And some people in the room will remember it fondly, and some people will be so young that they don't even know what it is. On film, we used to break the rushes at the end of the day, drive them down to London overnight, put them in the bath, and in the morning when they'd been developed, we'd put them on a car again, drive them back up the M6, where they would be put through telecine, and played out, if we were lucky, by lunchtime the following day. Now on digital, we can break rushes at lunchtime, send the card back to be ingested, and it can be up on a link by midway through the afternoon of the same day. In fact, we've had occasions where Nicola's been sat in the office and she's been able to watch the first half of a scene that we haven't yet completed on set. Playouts used to be copied on DVD in real time, stopping the edit for a whole hour. Downloads and uploads now take considerably less time. However, it still needs Wi-Fi for us to access and upload, and increasingly that can be an irritation, particularly when working out in the field. if wanting to access large files. I'll come on to that in a minute. So we're not quite able to stream data yet, and for those of you that travel on the train up and down to London regularly, you'll know the irritation that can provide. If moving from film to digi was our biggest technological leap of the last 5 years, more recently our biggest change has been starting the use of media silo, allowing us a platform-based access to rushes, edits and back catalogue. It's cloud-based and doesn't require massive amounts of download time and data transfer or clogging up storage on individual machines. And I think this is a huge development for us, and goes back to not actually requiring as much Wi-Fi linkage as perhaps we'd previously required. We can watch rushes and edits and leave feedback directly on a timeline, literally noting as we go through a production and saying, cut at this scene, change this shot, and putting it across on notes, as opposed to finding ways of collating everybody's individual notes when we all write slightly differently, and wondering on a programme like Scott and Bailey which one of the many interview scenes with Saran Jones questioning an individual were we talking about, that we wanted to start on her first rather than the individual we were questioning. The level of access and increased speed has opened up another opportunity for us as well, and that's one of remote working. I don't know whether we've got sound editors in the room, but increasingly we're seeing the opportunity for track layers to work at home. I think that's going to change over the next few years again and enable picture editors to be able to work from home for at least some of the periods of the post-production cycle. And if we can do that, then possibly it'll open new doors for us to be able to work with international based editors. And maybe even attract international directors, because they would then be able to do some of the post-production period of the year back at home. As we get more proficient at using media silo, I'm sure we'll look back on and question how we ever managed with DVDs and chunky downloads. And it was very much a key factor in deciding the location of our recent move. We needed a total service provision, not just access to post-production facilities and creative personnel, but linked to a system of data transfer and storage that would allow us to operate not just in the regions but also internationally, particularly as broadcasters move to a system of delivery that is file-based rather than on tape. Media Silo has also become a storage bank for our back catalogue and allows us easy access to programs that we've made previously, and enabling us to send whole episodes, in fact whole series embedded in the body of an email, rather than relying on people being able to find ways of opening it. And again, those of you that have tried to open files that have been sent from different individuals will realise the significant advantage to that, particularly from a business perspective as we move forward. As our catalogue has grown over the years, the future exploitation of our back catalogue, the IP element of the business, is going to become increasingly important to us. If selling a format to another country is on the cards, then being able to send them the series we made, even if they're not going to show that, is a very quick method of explaining what the series was about. Another big recent change has been our slow adoption to iPads, trying to get us closer to a paperless environment. The irony of the fact that I'm presenting today on paper hasn't escaped me, and perhaps shows how far we have to come in learning how to get the most from the iPad. But being able to scribble directly on a screen and make notes to a script and then be able to send that forward is a key element of what we do. Going back to being storytellers, that's how we like to work, and it has made a big difference. And taking that a stage further, the iPhone as well, or smartphones, has changed how we carry information around. No longer carrying large files and literally lever arch files with schedules in. We can refer to it stored on our phone. It is making a big contribution to the flexibility and efficiency of what we do. I'm going to talk briefly now about a production that I'm actually halfway through filming as we speak. Pray. I mention it because I genuinely believe it is one of the most revolutionary productions that we've made in the history of Red. It's a 3-hour crime thriller for ITV. The scripts are massively ambitious, as was ours and the channel's expectation for the piece. The script is a chase from beginning to end. John Sim is a fugitive on the run, trying to prove his innocence before he's caught. It's a great idea. The problem is that our audience, however, is the same audience that watched the Bourne and the Bond films. And there aren't two distinct audiences, and the concern is that the Bourne films have considerably more multi-million-pound budgets than we do. I mean, we do have multi-million-pound budgets, but just not quite as multi as they do. And the danger is that the audience would see what we're doing in some form as being a pale imitation of its cinematic cousins. And the issue wasn't that we couldn't find the expertise to produce something of that quality. And in fact, many of the specialist skills and individuals that make those films are based in the UK. Everyone we talked to had loads of ideas and experience of how we might achieve the script. The problem was that, well, obviously we couldn't afford the time and the money, and in some cases the manpower to achieve the expectation. The solutions we started to get were stripped down poor man's versions of what had been developed for the feature films. We'd get pitches along the lines of, this is just like what they use, you know, but cheaper. So, well, it's like an iPad or a BMW, but not an iPad or a BMW. And as we've already established, our audiences are those that expect the iPad BMW. And they'll be very disappointed with a low-fat version and feel cheated. I mentioned earlier the ergonomic design consultants and how they had irritated me by their assumption of what they know best about how we work. And taking this a stage further, they were quoting very successful solutions in companies like Google, which had followed similar approaches. Google had obviously spent a considerable amount of time carefully working out what they needed and what their individual needs were. And to some extent it was exciting and revolutionary, particularly if you work in the environment of chairs and tables. They are successful, and therefore, to some extent, there must be a link. And it's a small link to conclude that if you copy what they do, then you too will be successful. The danger is what gets lost in translation, and as they do have meeting rooms that are deliberately uncomfortable to speed them up, they also have enormous boardrooms with very comfy chairs where they can spend long amounts of time discussing things properly and in depth. And Apple have a system of people being allowed to skateboard up and down the corridors. And this isn't because there is some sort of efficiency or dynamic way of working on a skateboard that they've discovered the rest of us haven't. The point was that it's enjoyable and fun. And what's fun to one person isn't necessarily fun to another. I personally would feel ridiculous skateboarding in the office. But what it does demonstrate, however, is the need for us to be clear about what it is that we're looking for. BVE today showcases a huge selection of products and services and technology, and today the hall is full of experts trying to offer insight and inspire creativity, support and help shape future content. But I'm aware that unless we as producers ask clearly what we're looking for, the experts in the room will come to suggest what they think it is that we want. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to ask and to go almost like I was visiting Father Christmas and ask for what it is that we want, what we'd enjoyed playing with last year, and what would be what we'd like more of, and what was disappointing and looked better on the box lid. Going back to Pray, I realised that the expectations of all involved and had in the project, we had to work hard about how we were going to make our approach more efficient. And before I start in more detail on Pray, what's right for Pray would not necessarily be right for our other productions, and I think we have to approach it on an individual production by production basis. I mean, what's right for Scott and Bailey or Last Tango in Halifax would definitely not be right for Pray, and vice versa. But hopefully we'll discover some things along the way that we can adopt and take forward. And it's through that questioning that we will find the new systems that are right for us and the future. John's story, or John's character in the story, is constantly on the run and moving at all times. And obviously the narrative we were going to tell needed to do the same, and we as a production company needed to do the same. Anybody that stumbled across a drama unit out on the street will have seen what looks like a sit-down demonstration outside the Houses of Commons. Anyone that has seen the people associated with filming, and there are lots of people associated, will have been, if not involved in the industry, questioning as to the relevance and the need of all those individuals. The easy ups, the gazebos, the deck chairs, the monitors, the cables, the bins, the tea tables, and that's all before you see a camera or an actor. I did consider calling this talk today Losing the Tea Table, and that was very much our ethos. What we did, what we really needed, we stripped down and we questioned repeatedly what it was that we needed to make the film. Why had we developed over the years and grown up with the idea of a gazebo-based encampment? Well, it's the monitors. The director wants to see a picture. The monitor is electrical. It rains in Manchester. It needs covering. Sometimes it's sunny. It still needs covering. There are cables to power it. They need covering so people don't trip over them. Human nature is to sit down whenever possible, so we provide chairs. With the chairs, not everyone can get close enough to the monitor or see the picture, so let's have another monitor with more cables and more chairs. The producer feels that he can't talk candidly with the director with all these people sat around, so let's have another gazebo with the producer and the director separated with more chairs and more cables. We get used to people being in the same spot, but just occasionally they're not there. They've gone for a cup of tea. Well, let's bring the tea table a little bit closer to us. People make litter. Let's put a bin alongside the tea table. The monitor's large. Why is the monitor large? Well, because big is better. And you can see more on it, can't you? But it doesn't fit in the location. Okay, well, we'll put it outside under the gazebo. Well, now the director's away from the camera and the actors. Oh, not a problem, give him a radio. But the director's the creative type and doesn't have a clue how to use the radio. Well, don't worry about that, we'll put an assistant director alongside him. Now we have a camera assistant running cables everywhere, an AD talking to another AD but not able to see each other, and worst of all, the director is nowhere near the action. It sounds ridiculous, and yet it's exactly what we do. We get comfortable with doing things the way that they've always been done. So let's try and question what we do and how we can see ways of improving it. I'm going to go through each department very quickly. I'm aware I'm running out of time. And see what we've done and see what's worked for us. The main solution that we came up with on Prey was to go for small wireless handheld monitors, purely for the director and the producer. Nobody else could see the picture. It was a revolution in itself, and yet if I think back to the beginning of my time working in production, we didn't have monitors for everybody to see. In fact, there weren't any monitors. So people used their own eyes to look at the action. Interestingly, getting rid of the monitors, we got rid of the trip hazards, the gazebos, and the remaining HODs started to do something that I'd not seen for some time. They were watching the action and questioning what was going to happen next, and paying attention, not sitting looking at a screen drinking a cup of tea. And the camera we use has rapidly become an industry standard, although I'm sure there are people in the room that would question why. And it's the Alexa. It's a 4K camera, and one of the things that we like about it is its simplicity of use and its standard compatibility with lenses. However, it's a chunky piece of kit. It's not lightweight. You only have to talk to the grip to realise that it doesn't make itself easily compatible with being handheld. And as we discussed, we wanted Prey to be very much on the move and handheld. There is a version of the camera out there called the Alexa M. People got very excited about this and started telling us this was our solution. We have adopted the Alexa M for this particular project. It is a solution, However, I present this as a task and a challenge to all of you that are in technical design at the moment. It is a current solution. It is far from the end solution. Anybody that has seen the Alexa M, it is basically an Alexa with a very small amount taken off the back. So it's almost the same size as an Alexa. It then has a large umbilical cord out of it. When I say large, it's about 1 inch across. And that goes to an Alexa. So you've now got 2 Alexas. This is why it turns out very expensive as well. That Alexa is then clipped, manhandled, maneuvered onto a backpack that we strap to the grip. The grip becomes a physical walking camera device. He looks a little bit like a Teenage Mutant Turtle with his backpack on. He can now move around in a more flexible way, and as long as we don't go beyond the length of the cable, we can be more maneuverable with the camera. We can put the camera into what we call Bolex mode. Those of you of a certain age will remember the Bolex film camera. It was lightweight, it was short, it had 2 handles on the front. You could carry it without resting it on your shoulder. And so Bolex mode gives us a much more fluid handheld ability. It's a start. It's a way of getting back to what worked actually 30 years ago, but it's not a complete solution to the problem that we face. The monitor that we have, it's small. It sits around my neck in a holster. It's heavy. My neck will tell you that at the end of the day. And it has a wireless sender on it. It's not Teradek, it's an ARRI version of it. I'm led to believe that it is better than Teradek, but I'm sure there are people here that would argue differently. What I would say is, from using it practically, and here is my second challenge to those of you that are technically based, it's good. It is enabling us to get rid of the cables. It's not brilliant. Its battery consumption is huge, and we need a large amount of batteries, and as a result, the batteries are heavy and big and chunky. And its ability to see round corners or through walls is practically non-existent, which can be irritating when the camera goes around the wall. You know, the whole point of being fluid and being able to move is to be able to see what the camera is doing. It's a framing device. I think we've got obsessed with what monitors should be. And again, I'm going to say what they should be from my point of view as opposed to what they can be. They do not need to be full HD. They do not need to be color correct. They do need to be frame accurate. That's the only thing that we use them for. In addition to that, focus sensitive, so we can see whether there is a sharp picture or not. The contrast ratio on it is important. One of the nice things about the monitor is that, having it around your neck is that you suddenly lose the sun glaring you in the face. That is a big issue with the larger monitor, and all we end up seeing is ourselves, particularly on a dark shot. But again, there is a better system to be invented out there by some smart individual, far smarter than me, who can invent something that is smaller, lighter weight, not as battery consuming. And ultimately, I want to get to being able to use one of these in front of me. I want to be able to watch direct live from the camera a picture on here. It's certainly sharp enough, it's certainly clear enough, and believe it or not, it's big enough because I have these arms and they can move it bigger, closer and further away, and the more I want to see, the closer I'll get to it. Just moving on to the other departments, I'm aware that now my time is up and I'm on 2 minutes. Sound mixing has changed recently. We've combined the mixer with the recorder, particularly for Prey. It's enabled us to go back to a more documentary style approach and actually carry it in a porta brace around us. Smaller radio mics are improving, and the battery consumption of both the mixer and the recorder and the mics has improved. This has made a big difference. We can even now change the radio mic's remote control, which saves fiddling under people's skirts, which has been a big improvement, if for the actors, not for the sound recordists. Lighting, there are some in here. LED panel lights have made an enormous difference to how we approached Prey. We've not actually got a generator on set. That's the first time I've had that, and that's a huge difference for us. We haven't got the cables; they're battery powered. They give us tungsten and daylight corrected light. They give us an opportunity to dim as well and correct the amount of light balance, and they are literally as flat as a TV screen, so they're not taking up room in the interior locations, and they don't produce heat. It has just revolutionized everything to the point that in combination with what we get from the camera, which is an ability to see low light levels in a way that is more impressive than what I can see in my own eye, particularly when it's going dark and we're never going to be able to get this scene in. I look at the monitor and I can see more image than I can actually see with my eyes. I'm not looking over there now because I know I'm over time. But embracing that combination of the two technologies together, the LED light with the overly sensitive camera, and not going back to the old way that we did it, i.e. bunging an enormous light outside and powering it with a generator. There are, and I'm sure the DPs and the camera people here will say, and correct me on this, that there are limitations with that, and we do have to let the window burn out in certain situations. But since when has allowing a window to burn out been the most heinous crime of making drama? I go back to telling story, and what we do is tell story, and whether I can see through the window or not is relevant to whether I can tell the story without seeing through the window or not artistically, creatively superior in some way. Very, very quickly, we use our picture editing system on Avid Symphony. Our sound editing is Pro Tools, and our grading is Baselight. These systems haven't changed very much, particularly over the years as a big change, but they have had small seed changes, as the editors will tell you. And it's those small seed changes that sort of summarize the way that many of the situations have changed at Red over the last 15 years. And just very quickly before I finish, want to round up by mentioning low-tech solutions to the problems. And I count these low-tech solutions as apps. Movie Magic is a very outdated piece of scheduling software. I'm sure that there is an app-based version of it. It's so simple, it's practically a spreadsheet. It's become the industry standard because it was invented 20 years ago and people have adopted it. It doesn't mean to say it's the best solution to our problem. iPads with Good Reader are allowing us to write on. Locations are using Google Maps. Directors are using Artemis as a lens sizer. DPs are using Sunseeker as a sun positioning and date and timing device. Directors are using storyboard apps. Makeup using Continuity Pro. I haven't seen costume using it yet, but I imagine there's a similar device and even Continuity. And casting are using Encode. I mention these very quickly because there's an opportunity there to see how production departments work, and for some of the smaller startup businesses to envisage a better way of producing a solution to our problems that can be handheld and app-based. Accountancy-wise, we use PMI, and again, we haven't got a successful electronic purchase order system yet. It's very dull, but it would make us more paperless. In conclusion, happily, I'd just like to say that, well, have we been successful in revolutionising our production? Well, yes, a little. The crew isn't smaller. Some departments have shrunk and some have grown, but what we are is more flexible. And changes we have made and improvements haven't been a huge revolution individually, but the sum total has been. And that's what's been needed. And what we need from here is the next big series of big ideas that will take us to the next stage of more efficient program making. Have we got rid of the tea table? Yes, we did get rid of the tea table. However, we've replaced the tea table with a mobile coffee man who comes twice a day. Not necessarily reducing the size of the unit, but everyone is much happier. And perhaps that should be our key goal. All of our improvements should make life just a little bit better. Thank you. If I know I'm slightly over time, but if anybody has any direct questions, I'll very happily take them from the floor. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's shorter than it would be if we had had to do it in a conventional way. What it's enabled us to do is shoot a more ambitious piece to a similar schedule than we were used to, and that's enabled us to deliver to the channel in a way that they've been pleasantly surprised. Any others? Yes? No? Yes. I'm not producing it this time, though. I produced it last time and the time before. I might still have some involvement with it, but I've got another series to produce. Yeah, good, good. I'm glad it's wanted. Any more? No? Thank you very much indeed.